Retro Warriors episode 456. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hi, Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
I still have a flayed open hand.
Yes.
I still have a finger that was exploded like a joke cigar by a surgeon and then reassembled.
Yeah.
Everything
was he
that was
wearing
true.
a Groucho Marx outfit at the time?
I wish. It was weird. My surgeon came into me like, because you meet them, and they come and they talk to you for a minute, and he kept bowing to me, and I was like, this is strange, but I kind of like it. I kind of like having people. I was like, is this how like kings feel? Like everyone bows to you, and you're like, yes, bow. And he was like, he had my hand in his hand because he was like showing me, and he kept bowing, and I was like, yes, bend to the knee. So I think I had like a small moment of egomania there, just for a brief second.
And then moments later, he starts dissecting you.
Yeah, and then a minute later, he's like, I'm gonna cut you good. Yeah. So we record in batches. So I still have a blown out hand. My kid is still sick. I'm still nursing a rat back to health. I've still got a very stressed out, upset wife from her job. My life is still weird and not awesome at this moment. So just as far as housekeeping, this was the episode that I anticipated would be strange and possibly short. So although we don't have a posted time limit, we could end the show right now, and we've still provided the amount of content we are legally required to.
And as always, let us cling together.
So just putting it out there. Yeah. We always try to hit an hour, but we'll see what actually occurs here.
Right.
My week. I had been getting into the Pokemon TCG and playing that stuff. And I did learn that I could cradle my Switch in my right hand and kind of crab claw the Joy-Con joystick with my left hand. So I don't know any of the Pokemon anymore because there's like 3,000 or 4,000 of them now.
Yeah, there's a billion of them.
I'm pretty sure it's just AI making all of them, so they make like 1 million a month or something.
Right, yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'll go back and play some Scarlet and Violet, and maybe so the card game, what happens is the version they're on, the set they're on, matches with the most recent video game.
I see.
So when the new games come out, so Scarlet and Violet came out, and they said, all right, Scarlet and Violet base set is out. That's what the Pokemon TCG is now.
Okay.
But then obviously they go many years between games, but they release new sets in the card game, like, as far as I can tell, like 5 or 6 times a year. It's insane.
Dang.
And so they're like, all right, well, this is Scarlet Violet Expansion 1, Scarlet Violet Expansion 2, Scarlet Violet Expansion, until they reach the next, landmark game in the series, and then they will go, all right, now it is base set Pokemon blank. So
weird.
I'm trying to just familiarize myself with some of the concepts in the card game, and it does tie in neatly to the video game.
Okay.
So I was playing more Scarlet and Violet to try to understand some of this stuff and like what it all means and who all the Pokemon are, and just, make it more cohesive for me. And also it was pretty easy to play one-handed because with my little crab claw hand.
Right.
Because it's not the fastest, most intense game in the world.
Does it support touch controls?
Not that I have ever discovered.
Okay.
I was hoping it supported single Joy-Con mode, but it does not seem to.
That's a shame.
And the game still runs noticeably like utter dog shit. It is one of the worst performing Switch games I've ever noticed.
Score, yeah.
And I say noticed because I think a lot of Switch games perform badly, but they hide it well.
Yeah.
This game performs badly and makes no attempt to hide anything. It just looks like you can see things rendering in real time as you are moving at all times.
I saw somebody post a video of the Switch port of Minecraft the other day.
Yeah.
And like it was rendering everything so slowly. They were in a boat that it just looked like they were in an empty void with a little pool of water right underneath them, like constantly.
Yeah.
And then they showed the same game emulated via Yuzu running on the same Switch, and it ran so much better.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I think my assessment remains the same about Scarlet and Violet. It's really fun. It is some of the most streamlined Pokemon that has ever existed that I've ever experienced. But the game runs so utterly distractingly bad that it's very frustrating. Like I was playing last night and I was doing a gym battle, And in the background was a guy enthusiastically clapping. Imagine someone with their whole chest and arms and just clapping in the biggest clapping motion they could.
Okay, yeah.
As fast as they could. Running at about 5 FPS.
Okay.
And their hands are at least a foot apart. They never touch. So he's just doing chicken arms at like weird speed with like ultra low frame rate, and it was so prominent and distracting in this battle that I couldn't quit looking at it enough to pay attention to the battle.
Nice.
Because I was like, this guy's so fucking annoying. And then later on that night, I was in a battle and my camera clipped completely into the ground.
Nice.
And just kept showing me a city like across the continent that it was clipping through to. It's just everything pops in. Things are rendering in real time. Things will like render and then jerk somewhere. Like they were like they're running behind. It runs so bad. But the actual catching and battling and collecting of Pokemon is so good.
Well,
it's very bizarre. It's like cheesecake wrapped in a turd. It's the strangest.
Back of the box quote right there.
I'm like, obviously care went into this because y'all went to great lengths to make this streamlined and fun and accessible. Like just little things like you don't have to go to the computer to access your box to change out your Pokemon. You just hit the pause menu. Your boxes are right there because why the fuck not? Why wouldn't you have that?
Nice.
You know, just nice to haves that make it hard to go back to earlier entries. But God, it just looks so fucking bad. It looks like an unfinished fan Pokemon game. But fun. Enjoying it, still having a good time with it. Wish it wasn't so distracting.
Yeah.
But it's been a thing. It's a time. That's my back of the box quote. It's a time. Also, I finally got the new Digimon. The virtual pets for people who haven't been keeping track of my life.
Yeah. The current obsession.
The Digimon Pendulum Color has come out. This is a re-release. So original Digimon came out in the late 90s. And then the second line, like the sequel to the original wave of, a few waves of Digimon, were the Pendulums. And the Pendulums refined a lot of things, made a lot of things more cohesive, made the devices all themed. So now instead of like, this is the first one and the second wave, and they have different rosters, but there's no real theme, it's like, oh, this is the ocean one and this is the forest one and this is the bad guys one and the good guys one and then the all robots one. And so that, it just brought a lot of cohesion to the idea of the Digimon virtual pets.
Okay.
And Bandai has re-released them in color with rechargeable batteries. They're still the same size, they're still the same little device, but they've added a ton of really nice just quality of life features as far as virtual pets go. That has made them, they're so good. They're possibly the best virtual pets, the best Digimon to date. But I struggle to call them my favorite because they all have very limited rosters. So like the actual UI, the actual tracking of stats on it, very nice, very streamlined, very nice devices, tons of unlockable stuff. But the rosters, because they are remakes of the original devices just done up, they have the original rosters, which are much, much, much smaller than we're used to on Digimon virtual pets today. Because today things release with gigantic rosters. There's like 60, 70, 80 Digimon per device, and depending on the device, obviously. And a lot of them have different complicated unlock routes. So there's a lot of playing of the device to get everything unlocked. And there's quest modes on newer devices. These don't have that stuff. They're like, here's your roster. We've added a couple extras to fill in some gaps, but it's basically, nice remakes of the originals.
That's fair.
But I've been really enjoying those. They've been a good time. My daughter's been playing them with me because for whatever reason, these aren't released in the English speaking world.
Right.
These anniversary devices, these color devices. So when they released the Digimon Colors, the original device remakes in color, they were all in Japanese.
Right.
But in Japan, when they released the original Pendulums, they were in English for some reason. And so these anniversary remakes are also in English.
That's nice.
So my daughter is able to enjoy them with me, which has been very nice. And they finally have, nobody but me cares, but on Digimon, whenever they need something, like they want you to like give them medicine or feed them or whatever, and you ignore it, that's called a care mistake, right?
Okay.
And accruing care mistakes is how you get certain evolutions. So when you treat Digimon bad, they turn into the bad guy Digimon, the evil ones. They all look like, demons with machine guns and stuff. And when you treat them good, they look like dinosaurs with machine guns.
Okay.
And previously on all other devices, care mistakes were an invisible stat. You had to track them manually, either in your head, writing it down, whatever. These ones now track your care mistakes with condition hearts. And I don't know why it's taken like 27 years for Digimon to do this. But it's very nice.
Nice.
Because I could just tell, because my daughter struggles with it, because she's like, I want this Digimon that I like. I don't want any of these other pieces of fucking shit. I want this one that looks like a cat and none of the rest of them. So I have to tell her, an 8-year-old, like, all right, well, this is what this is the esoteric idea of a care mistake. And you're going to need to track it manually as you accrue them. Now it can just be like, well, you need to have this many of these many hearts. And it just kind of works.
That does make it a little easier.
It's nice. I wish these color re-releases weren't so expensive because they're import devices. They're like, I want to say they're like $60 a piece.
Damn.
Which is, it's high.
Yeah.
It's really high. And you're probably paying $15-$20 to ship them. Mine shipped from Singapore is the import service I use. And so it's pricey.
Yeah.
Especially when the Digimon X, the American release, which just came out not long ago, is like $18 on Amazon Prime.
That seems more reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, it is. You can absolutely get fantastic Digimon for less than a $20 bill. Sometimes less than a $10 bill if you don't mind getting the fugly colors that don't sell for shit. But yeah, these are definitely the premium devices. But I've been enjoying them. Me and my daughter have a lot of fun running them.
Does that count as a care mistake when you call them fugly for their ugly colors?
Only if they could hear me.
Oh, okay.
But they can't. So we spent like 30 minutes today because I have an aftermarket device made by fans that emulates certain. You can put a code into it and it will pretend to be a certain type of Digimon.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that in the past.
And it has prongs, so I can battle it with my actual virtual pet. And on the color ones, it unlocks different backgrounds and stuff.
I see.
So my daughter and I sat there with all three of them today, doing all the requisite battles to unlock all of the different backgrounds. And so we've been greatly enjoying those. If you're a psychopath like me, you've already bought them. So I don't know why I'm telling anyone. And if you're not, then you wish I would shut up so Saturn could talk about video games now instead of me talking about virtual pets in 2024. High dollar import anniversary virtual pets. This is my life.
Well,
okay.
At least you and your daughter can bond over them.
That's true.
Nice.
She was earlier today. She was just on the couch, just literally going, "Oh, I love these new Digimon. They're so good." And I was like, "I know they are, aren't they?" She's like, "Yeah." I feel bad because she goes to school and tries to explain Digimon to other kids. And she's 8, so she's like, "It's like Pokemon, but they wear jeans." It's like she doesn't.
That's a pretty good description, honestly.
They do. They have guns and they wear jeans. That's basically it. Yeah. And so she's like,
"Oh, you mean Pal World?"
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda. Yes, actually. Fucking Pal World ripping off Digimon's thing, putting Pokemon in jeans and attaching guns to their arms. But yeah, they're very good. Saturn, what video games have you been playing?
So I've been still chipping away through the newest Like a Dragon.
Yes.
Through Infinite Wealth. And I've decided I have to complain about a story element.
Okay, go ahead.
Because this is fairly early in the game. It's chapter 3. It's the big sting at the end of chapter 3. But so far, it has not affected the story whatsoever. Like, they make a big production about it, like it's going to be an important thing, and then immediately nobody cares about it, and it doesn't affect gameplay.
Oh, that's nice.
However, if you are story spoiler sensitive, you might want to skip forward a couple of minutes. So at the end of chapter 3, you've teamed up with Kiryu because you're playing as Ichiban, and Kiryu mentions that he has learned to embrace the greater things in life and relish every moment. And I'm just like, well, yeah, I imagine you've been through a lot of shit in your life. Then he says, it's because I have terminal cancer. And
what?
my first thought when he says that is it because of the decades of chain smoking that you've literally never put down a cigarette in your life?
Certainly not, Saturn.
And then seconds later, it cuts to a flashback of him working in a chemical waste factory. Just so they can explain away his cancer
It's the cigarettes!
as toxic waste spilling all over him or some shit. And then it cuts back to the present.
I really wish when they cut back, I know they didn't, but it was him like haphazardly carrying an open barrel of it. It's splashing up into his face and in his mouth.
No, what it is like somebody else in this toxic chemical plant has a heart attack and runs into a bunch of barrels of toxic chemicals in a forklift, and then Kiryu rushes over to save the guy, but his mask breaks. And
why do they this? Who the fuck?
Like they easily could have just said it's from all the smoking and moved on, and it would have been totally understandable.
Or just not given a reason. There's not always a reason
exactly
why people get cancer. Just I have cancer. Oh yes, that's a thing that happens to humans.
Yeah,
like
but yeah, it was just. That was so dumb to me. So dumb.
When did he work in a chemical plant?
Oh, it was between the events of Like a Dragon Gaiden and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
He just went and got a job at a dangerous chemical processing plant?
They explain it away because he was trying to stay under the radar because he's assumed dead.
Go get a job as a fucking bartender or a janitor.
So he had to work the dangerous jobs that nobody else wanted because otherwise they would ask for identification. So
I'm sorry, if you work in a hazardous waste plant, they absolutely ask for identification.
Right?
Those are extremely regulated places, especially in Japan.
Yes. So
I can't fathom how stupid this is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that you're on the same page as me on that because it was so stupid that I had to
dumb.
I had to put the controller down and walk away for a little while because of how stupid that was to me.
Oh my god.
Of all the ridiculous melodrama that the series has had to date, and there's a lot, that was the moment where I was like, come on, guys. Come on.
Why? Just why?
But anyway.
All right. Cool.
So,
Thanks,
other than that ridiculous plot point, the game is still really good. I'm enjoying it. The difficulty curve doesn't seem anywhere near as bad as the last game, but I'm also still pretty early. Yeah. One thing I really appreciate is they have a thing called Smackdown now, where if you are over level, first of all, you can tell before you even start the battle because the little enemy indicator that shows that somebody could aggro you, it will be red if they're around your level, blue if they're below your level, and pink if they're way too strong for you. Okay. And I have learned that the pink is an accurate indicator because if you even approach them, they'll probably one-hit you.
All right.
But if they are blue, it gives you an option as the battle is starting to hit the left trigger, and it will trigger a smackdown where the battle just instantly ends and you get the reward. And I love when games do that.
Yeah, that was definitely a series that really needed it too.
Yes. So
the amount of combat would go on for so long.
And in that last game there was so many battles too. The encounter rate was ridiculous.
It's a huge amount.
And the only downside if you use this is you get 70% experience instead of full 100%. Yeah. But you still get all of the item drops you would get. You still get all the money.
Still totally worth it.
So it's absolutely worth it. And it makes grinding super easy. If you just go to an area that you're just barely too strong for, you'll be gaining levels very quickly. So
yeah.
Cool. Other than that, the Xbox release of Final Fantasy 14 came out. And you remember your biggest complaint about the game was account management.
Yes. And so miserable it is.
So they heard your feedback. Now they have made it worse.
Saturn, it's not possible to make something that literally doesn't function worse. It already literally doesn't function.
Let me tell you how they made it worse.
Oh, God.
So they've introduced a new currency.
Why? They have Krista and they don't even need it.
It's called Xbox coins.
God damn it. Fucking damn it, Square Enix. Why?
And if you only own the Xbox version, it's the only way you can pay for game time. However, when you buy the game and you purchase the game, it'll ask you what Square Enix account you want to license it to. You do that, and then it says error logging Xbox coins. Please restart the client. And so you restart the client, and you try it again, and it says error processing Xbox coins. Well, what you're supposed to do is log into the game all the way, and then log out, and then restart it, and then it'll give you your Xbox coins so that you can then pay for the game time that came with your game so that you can play the game.
God damn it.
However, if you own the game on multiple platforms and then you buy it on Xbox, it will continue to give you an error for unknown reasons that they can't yet identify.
How can you not identify? You run a public beta for this for 2 months.
They didn't beta test the currency, Justin.
God damn it, you don't need the currency, you sons of bitches. You sons of bitches.
And then they also left the profanity filter at its harshest level, not just by default, mandatory. And this was apparently something from Xbox. This is from the Microsoft side. They insisted that the game have a profanity filter to ensure that, kids couldn't see the swears, right?
But why?
But you can't turn it off.
There are other online games on Xbox, and let me tell you, I've worn headsets on Xbox Live. The filters do nothing.
Yeah.
They do nothing.
So, and the problem is that it's the worst filter. So it'll filter things that are in between words. And the words that it filters are so dumb. Like, I noticed it filters anal.
All right.
It filters STD.
Okay.
And it filters AIDS. Which is a disease.
I don't understand how Square Enix continues to fuck up their cash cow this consistently. It has to be on purpose.
And sometimes it will censor things in the middle of plot-relevant dialogue. But only in the chat window and not in the dialogue window.
Stop saying and. There can't be more. There can't be more.
If you use the Party Finder to look for a free company or to advertise your free company and request that people join it, which is a normal part of an MMO because you need people to join your guild, apparently Microsoft can ban your Xbox account for solicitation.
I don't know.
There's already been 2 people who have announced that their Xbox accounts received temporary bans for solicitation for advertising their free companies.
I don't understand how Square Enix, kings of fucking up account management,
and Microsoft is equally culpable for a lot of this garbage.
Somehow teamed up.
Yeah.
To create the fucking Harlem Globetrotters of account mismanagement. The dream team of fucking up how your account works.
Yeah.
And they've now released it and want money for it. Well, not money. I'm sorry. They want coins. They just want money for the coins.
So when I detected that this was such a disaster, I tried to get a refund because Xbox gives refunds. They give refunds a lot more than PlayStation gives refunds. So I requested a refund and it was denied. So then I requested an appeal, and then I received notification that I cannot get a refund because I already have 70 achievements in the game.
But God damn it. It's because you played it on another platform.
So,
what is going on, Square Enix? Do you know that? Did they know? They have to know, right? They don't not know.
I truly hope that some or all of this will be fixed or patched by the time the expansion comes out. Because this is a disaster. This is just a rough launch.
God damn it.
The game itself plays all right.
Great. God. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, also, from the account management side. So, Microsoft as a bonus for Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, because you need Game Pass Core or Ultimate to play the paid version of the game, not the trial. But if you buy the game, you have to have Game Pass. So Microsoft has added to the Game Pass perks the base version of the game without the expansion. So if you want to get the game and its first 2 expansions for free, you can from Game Pass perks. However, if you redeem that and attach it to your Final Fantasy account, you can no longer play the free trial. So even if you're still at the very beginning of the game, your free trial is immediately expired because you redeemed that paid version.
I think the reason it makes me so mad
It's because it's stupid?
Well, that, right.
Yeah.
But I run into stupid shit all the time on Steam. I request a refund and I get my money back. It makes me so mad that because this has to do with an MMO at all, basically all refunds are immediately refused across the board.
Yeah.
Oh, you paid for your subscription in the wrong way? Square Enix is keeping that money and they will not give it back to you. You shouldn't have been so dumb as to give them $15. Literally everyone I know that plays the game has at least once wasted money in some way. Yeah. If it be at a month worth of subscription or whatever, throwing money at this game that they went, oh, fuck, I meant to, that needed to be on this sub account, or I needed to buy that with Krista, or I needed to buy that through Steam currency, or, well, I was on the trial, but then my 30 days ran out and I was subscribed in the wrong way, so I needed to switch to this other type of currency. Literally, you, me, Andrew, everyone I know that plays this game has lost some amount of money.
I bought a whole ass expansion I couldn't use.
Yeah, and they're like, well, it's an MMO, so you can't have your money back. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. You stole my money.
Yeah.
You lied about what you had, took my money, and then went, oh, I guess you got to try to buy it again. Like it's part of the fucking game.
Yeah, like I keep expecting them to have like that nefarious laugh after every comment about it. It's like, we apologize for the downtime.
Yeah. That's why it makes me so mad. It's one thing to have bullshit, but then be like, all right, we fucked up. Here's your money back. Let us fix it. Just relax.
And what's frustrating is I really enjoy the game. It's a really fun game.
Yeah, the game is fun as hell. It's a
so
fun-ass game, man.
But no, like the first expansion that I bought for it, I bought the PC version of the expansion because I was playing it on PC. But it turns out I bought the Windows version of the expansion and not the Steam version of the expansion.
You foolish fool.
And how dare I?
I've wasted money recently, actually.
Yeah,
I realized, twice, actually. Andrew's wasted money on it, and it's like, oh, you're not subject for refunds, and they will deny everything. And like, I don't understand.
Yeah, if anyone is looking to get into the Final Fantasy XIV universe, before you spend any money, before you spend one penny on it, go and find established FF14 players and ask them to like write you a diagram of exactly how you should spend the money beforehand. Otherwise, you will mess up.
It is so frustrating that a game as complex as the game, with as good of onboarding as the game has, and for the amount of complexity in the game, there is good onboarding. It's still confusing just because it's so much.
It's huge,
But the game onboards you pretty well.
Yeah.
But you literally need to go find like a
mentor,
a mentor, to teach you how to subscribe to the game. Unless you are exclusively on Windows, the Square Enix store version, purchased version of the game, it is confusing as shit. And I don't know how there has not been a class action lawsuit, because everyone I know that plays the game at least one time has lost at least a few bucks tossing money away going, oh shit, I meant to buy that in this way.
And now I have some Xbox coins I can't use.
Enjoy those coins, Saturn. What else? Can you buy other stuff with them? No,
you can. You can.
Really?
You can either buy subscription time, or you can buy in-game cosmetic items.
Oh, how nice.
Or mounts.
How do you run a game this successful?
Oh, wait. I forgot the best part about the Xbox coins. I don't remember what the denominations you can buy them in. I think it's 500 is the lowest, and a monthly subscription is 1,200.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course. It's
because
like
they're
they
playing
have two different teams. It's like Square Enix has a team that runs the game, and then they have a team that monetizes the game.
and they hate each other.
And the team that monetizes and run the accounts fucking hate it. They hate the game. And that's just, it's so weird. I can't, fuck you, Square Enix. You are incompetent and dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, I restarted Final Fantasy 15 the
yeah?
day before I went into surgery, so I can't play any more of that for about a week.
Nice.
But was trying to jump
You
into
and
that
your
one.
bros on the road trip?
Yeah, I was excited about the PC version because I could put Cindy in clothing.
That's true. There is a mod for that, which is nice.
And so, and it's got Steam Workshop support. So I put clothes on her.
Nice.
So, when she slides up under her car, her exposed thong doesn't roll down over her Daisy Dukes.
I
still don't understand the choices for that character. Like, who?
I think I would like to put her in like a full business suit, but then put Gladio in her outfit.
There's so many character model swaps.
Yep.
It's like everything. You want to be Sora in Cindy's Daisy Dukes?
Right.
Great. That's Noct now. That's who he is. So have fun. We got to do the news. Let's do the news.
Right.
First up, Kotaku's editor-in-chief Jen Glennon has resigned as the site's parent company is shifting towards guides instead of news. And let me give you a little hint, a little bit of inside baseball about what a guide is in the games journalism space.
It's how to. I hope it's how to pay for monetization in FF14 because that needs a fucking guide.
It's literally individual articles about how to do individual things in games, each served up as its own article to maximize ad revenue, because I used to work for the largest company that does exactly that media type in the space, and they're making a fucking killing.
And doesn't their parent company own Kotaku now?
I think so, yeah. And they've recently come under fire because of the hellish work conditions. It's when they say guides, they don't mean they're putting out like piggyback style or Prima style
no strategy guides. No,
they mean when a new game comes out, you'll get 75 articles about like how to find object X in quest Y, how to find object Y in quest Z, all as individual articles served up that you have to search through. So enjoy that.
I do hope that they release an article on how to redeem your FF14 Xbox coins, because that could be useful to me.
It could be. Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, so many websites are doing this exact format that it means that ChatGPT is always well informed about how to do whatever it is you need.
Which is good, since that's who's writing most of these guides.
Right. Miyu has announced the A30. So we've got the Miyu Mini Flip coming, which looks great. This is the A30, which is a kind of wide format, very squarish looking, kind of NES Famicom themed emulation device. I don't know if we have specs on this one yet or not.
I don't remember.
But really, as long as it, like, all Miyu has to do is work with the Onion OS team to make sure that Onion can run on their devices, and they will have a slam dunk almost every time. Period. I'm just putting it out there. Like, as long as the hardware isn't just the worst garbage ever and it runs Onion, that's a good device. Yeah. Period. And hopefully that's what they do, but I don't think we have any details on that yet. Xbox sales are, quote, flatlining in Europe. Some developers have begun publicly questioning the merit of porting games to the console. So good job, Microsoft. Just a little tiny baby company that owns Activision and Bethesda and id Software. And, just...
I'm a little worried about this just because we've seen what happens when Sony gets his big boy pants. And it's never good things.
Yeah, I'm not excited for that. I'm not excited for the Switch to be as old as it is feeling, and the Xbox to be doing this poorly, and the PS5 to still be selling as well.
Kind of running away with it at this point.
Yeah. F-Zero Maximum Velocity comes to Nintendo Switch Online Plus. This is the second F-Zero on GBA, or is it the first one?
I think this is the first one, if I remember right.
Okay, because I think there's two on GBA, right? There's two GBA F-Zeros?
So. Yeah, the other one was GP something, if I remember
the one
right.
system that got two F-Zero games for some inexplicable reason.
Right.
No one knows why.
And the second one is story-driven.
It's very strange. They're strange. Sega workers have ratified their union contract, a first for a large company in the gaming industry. Hopefully we see more of this. We see more worker protections, because they're just getting hemorrhaged out of every major gaming corporation, it seems, on the planet right now.
Yeah.
So nice to see this happening.
And GDC this year was kind of depressing, because the main topic seemed to be what to do when you're laid off.
Yeah, I remember Tarn Adams, the Dwarf Fortress guy, came out, and there's some quote where he's like, they're greedy assholes who can eat shit. I think is what he said, which kudos to him. He's never
Right.
needed the industry.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to see a dev that's like, yeah, they can eat shit, play Dwarf Fortress. Which I agree with both of those sentiments. I was very excited to hear him say
it's also factually true. They can, in fact, eat
they
shit.
can eat shit, and I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Bandai Namco is delisting several games in the Tales series. Do we know why this is happening?
No, they have not said why,
just
but
mystery.
several of the older games are just being ripped off of digital storefronts, and it changes depending on region as to which games are being ripped down too. The only consistency is that they are not touching Symphonia, which is the cash cow of the series.
Yeah.
But any of the other ones seem to be on the chopping block in one region or another.
You know what I would think would be a really good use of this newfangled social media is if maybe when companies begin removing products, they can put out like some kind of thing on like a social media platform that's like, hey, this is why we're doing this. This
No,
is
that's
what's going
ridiculous.
on with us.
Why would you do that?
Potential customers who were going to give us money, but maybe now are probably going to be scared to give us money even if the things come back because they just disappeared randomly before for no reason.
Yeah, but then why would you give them money if you're worried that it'll disappear? So
I'm
better,
not giving them shit now.
better to just not bring any attention to it and pretend like it's not happening.
Back on Sega, they are selling Relic Entertainment and cutting 240 jobs across Europe,
That's rough.
which is a bummer. I love Relic. Company Heroes 3 came out and was apparently an absolute fucking shit show, which breaks my heart because I love the Company Heroes games. I love a lot of Relic's games. They did the Dawn of War games. They've done my favorite RTSs of all time. And it's sad to see them getting sold off and probably chopped up by the end of it, I would imagine.
Well, they always felt like a weird match for Sega to me.
It kind of was. It kind of because Sega also has the Total War guys.
Yeah.
So they have a weirdly strong strategy pedigree.
Yeah.
Under Sega, which has always felt a little weird.
Well, it was always just Sega Europe that kept investing in all of these Western strategy developers.
Yeah.
Which is strange. But no, I think they said that Relic is going to be an independent company now.
Good for
if
them.
I remember that.
I hope that works out. I'm excited to see what they do next. They make great games.
I'm just hoping they don't get reacquired by Embracer, since that's
they probably will.
Who they were a part of before they were Sega was the old
They
THQ.
will. I don't. Yeah. I don't know. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
Yeah.
Speaking of Embracer Group has sold Gearbox to Take-Two, which okay.
Honestly, Gearbox and Take-Two feels like a good match to me, since Take-Two has been publishing the Borderlands games anyway.
Yeah, it all kind of that one all kind of tracks.
Yeah.
And finally, indie devs are reporting that big funding from Game Pass or EGS is no longer available to new projects, and this could be the kind of economic other shoe dropping on Game Pass and like things that you and I have been kind of hand-wringing over for a couple of years now.
We knew it was coming. It was bound to happen eventually, and yeah.
So it's unfortunate, and because for a while there, I mean, Game Pass was just slam dunking it, and they were courting every indie. I mean, Xbox made it sound like Phil Spencer was personally going out and buying dinner for every indie game developer and then handing them bags of cash. I mean, it really seemed that way for about a year or two there.
And this last week or two, we saw one indie developer who had originally announced a game as an ID at Xbox title, which means that Microsoft co-funded the game, try to cancel the Xbox release and say they were focusing on PC and PS5 to only later backtrack and be like, no, we're definitely still releasing on Xbox eventually.
Yeah. So it's sad to see. I think a lot of this is still just the economic downturn of the games industry that we are kind of entering into this sort of video gaming bear market, I guess. And it's unfortunate to see that it's getting hit so hard because there are so few protections for anyone in this space.
Yeah, and I think my pet theory has been for a while that it's because a lot of the big companies have been trying to make games bigger and bigger and bigger to catch up to Hollywood. And it's made everything cost too damn much. We need
Meanwhile,
to go back
Balatro
to
is a 60 megabyte install.
Right? And
like, what are you fucking doing?
we need
Someone
more of
took
that.
poker and added points and weird rules to it, and they're crushing you.
Oh yeah.
Not in the money department because they don't have microtransactions.
True,
but, you
but-
know, I'm just like, you can get critically acclaimed
But
bestsellers without.
just wait till they release the Balatro expansion that has like 50 more Jokers in it or something. I'll pay $3-4 for that.
God, I would pay way more than that.
All right.
I would pay like $20-$30 if they released a big Balatro expansion. I would be like, hell yes.
Well, 50
please.
Jokers isn't a big expansion. Because the
Okay,
game has
Saturn.
250,
All right.
350, something like that.
That's true. Yeah, I guess it's got a lot, but still, my point is, I agree. I think they're letting projects get too big. They're letting them get too out of hand.
Right.
They're letting them focus too much on the cinematics and the games as a service, and it is just bleeding us dry as an industry. And it's
depressing.
Very sad to see. Which brings us to our topic at hand.
Does it?
Yeah.
Speaking of depressing,
this is kind of a weird one. We want to do an episode on choice paralysis and library curation, which seems like a weird topic.
Yeah.
But it does come up a lot in the Discord, which is where we get a lot of inspiration for a lot of our topics, and it comes up in the form of like, hey. I see this. Hey, I don't like emulation, and I don't like it because having an ocean of everything available to me at once makes it impossible for me to decide what I want to focus on, and it means that I just play a game until I lose one life, and then I switch to a next game. I feel dissatisfied, and then I move on back to my original hardware where it feels more focused.
Right.
So
sometimes I hear those exact same people say, "So I just get a flash card instead."
Yeah, you do see that. And it's something that even I've kind of brought up when we were talking about mini consoles, when that was the big, haps in the retro gaming space.
Yeah.
Where I was saying, hey, I like how they make it a little bit inconvenient to operate the emulation features. They're all still present, but it's just inconvenient enough to kind of encourage you not to just be constantly cheating and switching ROMs and doing all this shit. And so I think it's a worthwhile topic. I don't know how much of an episode we're going to get out of it, but that's okay because my hand hurts.
Is that okay?
I'm not too concerned about it.
Unfortunately, we spent plenty of time bitching about Final Fantasy 14, so that's like an episode already.
As far as, really, you just listed things and I acted upset about it for like 10 whole minutes.
I could keep going.
As far as initial thoughts, I struggle with this a lot because I'm always hopping hardware, OS installations, interests. So it is hard for something to grab me for a long time because I feel like I just always have so much I want to be enjoying. There's always so much I'm buying and finding and discovering. And also I'm playing different stuff literally every week for the show. So I'm just kind of already flitting all over the place, even when I'm not just sort of bored staring at my RetroArch install, deciding what to play. And it creates a situation where I just don't have a lot of time to focus on things.
Yeah.
And especially when we're doing bigger stuff. I mean, we just got out of doing a ton of RPGs not long ago, like back to back to back.
Yeah.
And it's also condensed. And then to top it off, I did MMOs.
You had some free time.
And a lot of it feels really scrunched down, and it means that I spend a lot of time just sort of channel flipping, as it were, I know that you are more disciplined in this regard.
Yeah, I don't. I've rarely had this problem, and I think it's because early on, like when we first get into gaming as kids, or whenever you did get into gaming, we have our library, we have our handful of games. It is what we can play. Maybe we have a neighbor with some games and we can play their games. Maybe we can rent a game or download a demo or whatever
on Friday if you're good.
Right. Yeah. And these days it's a little different because one, you have enormous libraries on all the consoles. You have digital downloads. You have free to play games everywhere. So it's probably a little different for people getting into the scene now. But I grew up with that idea of just having that small library. And then when I discovered emulation for the first time was during the Windows 95 era. And for people who didn't live through that, you were lucky if you had more than 100 megs of hard drive space. Well, maybe 200 megs.
Yeah.
But either way, you didn't have a gigabyte of hard drive space. That's
Certainly
insane
not.
talk.
That's ridiculous.
What are
And so, a fucking moon man,
right? So, and a lot of my games that I had on emulators, I couldn't keep them all on my computer because I only had so much space reserved for the emulator. Because, what if we had to download a picture? So I would put them on floppy disks. And a lot of my Super NES ROMs wouldn't even fit on a floppy disk. So I had to split it on a zip file between multiple floppy disks. So I was very good very early on about refining my library down to just the ones that I knew I was going to want to play.
Yeah.
And I've kind of just carried that thought forward throughout the years, despite having full ROM sets on my computer. When I actually open my emulator, I don't see that. I see my old ROM folder with just my ROMs, and I have to go out of my way to open up those other things.
Yeah. It's the first category you have here is just why. And I do think it's an important thing to address because some people just don't suffer from this. Some people are just focused people. And I think it's worth addressing like why we think curation and careful selection can create a better experience, because I do think it can.
Right.
And a lot of it is just simply that we all have limited time and attention spans, and both of those things seem to be getting shorter and smaller as the world progresses and time marches forward.
Right.
And being able to take an experience and be able to sit down with it, know exactly what you want, get right into it, and cut out all of the bullshit means that, for me at least, I'm more likely to do it.
Yeah.
Because I know I don't have a chore ahead of it. Like a lot of times, like there will be a game I want to play, but I know there's a big intro to it. I won't even start it because I'm like, I don't want to sit through the chore of the first 45 minutes of this experience. So I'm just not going to do it. Much in the same way with ROMs. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I kind of feel like, this or that, but I don't want to sit down and have to figure out potential candidates and which one I should be spending time on.
Right.
It's definitely something I think that has been instilled in me as an adult. I think when I was younger, like I did have a pretty decent selection of games growing up. We probably had, 30, 40 NES carts in my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was a pretty good chunk. Most people, like if you had a dozen, you were doing good.
Right.
And we probably had 30, 40, maybe even 50. Yeah. A lot of it was just because a lot of it kept getting purchased from my brother years after the Super Nintendo had come out.
Right, yeah, once they started getting cheap.
And so, I've always had that kind of like, what do I feel like playing? Look at all this stuff, but nothing looks good.
Yeah, I think my early experience with it was at the rental store. When you would look at that wall of like 50 games or whatever they had, and I'd be like, this is an unwieldy number of games here. How am I supposed to pick which one I want? Do I really want to play Adventures of Dino Riki?
And there always was that disappointment when you
got the bad.
Because here's I guess it's worth considering that I might be dumb, but
what?
I don't know. Yeah, you can sound more authentically incredulous. Tell me if you did this. When I was a kid, I would rent a game and be like, this game sucks and I hate it and it has ruined my weekend. But then like 2 or 3 months later, I would rent that game again.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, was it bad or was I just dumb or I couldn't figure it out because there wasn't a manual or something?
That
like,
was maybe Amagon for me.
Okay. For me,
also Muscle on NES. I rented that one twice, thinking that it was going to be thinking it was going to be better the second time.
I rented Spawn on Super Nintendo. I don't know, 7 or 8 times, and I wanted it to be so cool because it's Spawn.
Yeah, I had a friend who rented that 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
When you're like 10 in the 90s, Spawn is like the coolest, darkest. Like it's so cool.
Yeah.
And the game fucking blows
it was really
ass.
Bad. Yeah. Well, didn't it have a weird colored cart too?
I don't remember. I don't remember it having one. But I'm not sure.
Because it came out around the same time as Maximum Carnage, which definitely
Maximum Carnage, and then Killer Instinct was a black cartridge, and then I don't remember it having that.
Yeah,
but it might have, and if it did, that could have been why I rented it an additional time too, because I was like, oh, the cartridge was like that would have convinced me as a kid. So why's out of the way, let's talk actual curation.
Okay.
Because there's a few different approaches that you can tackle this with.
Sure.
I think. And you had put down an approach, and I put down some alternate approaches. So I'll let you start with yours because I feel like yours was kind of the broader, more general approach, and then I gave some weird, kind of different ways to go about it.
Yeah. So for me, I'll start by taking the genres that I am not at all interested in, removing all of that. That's the easy part.
So get rid of all the sports games.
Get rid of all the sports games. Get rid of most of the brawlers. Get rid of, the kind of stuff that I just know that I'm not going to want to sit down and play. And then anything that's not in my language but not easy enough to play, that's also next to go. Unless it has a fan translation, and even then, it depends on if it's a good fan translation. So you can get rid of all that. So then by that point, you have game genres and types that you would potentially enjoy. So then you take the known good quantities, the games that either you've heard good things about or you've played a game in that series and you enjoyed, and things like that. Take those, and then you ditch any of the rest. So things that you don't enjoy, things that you have played a game in that series that you actively didn't like, and that'll get you a good start. And also,
kind of a very top-down approach for you,
right?
Then just like from the top level, like let's start separating wheat from chaff.
Exactly. And then if I'm looking at a console that I'm generally unfamiliar with, I will go and try to find lists online that are like the best games for the system. And I'll start with those, and I'll just remove anything that is not in that first batch, just so I can try those, give them a shot. And for me, I always try to have a handful of like those comfort food games, like the games that I know I like and that I know I like going back to.
Yeah.
Like Lemmings. I will throw Lemmings on almost every ROM list, sometimes on multiple platforms, so that if I'm looking at like, well, I really want to play a Genesis game today. All right, back to Lemmings it is. So there's no crime in going back to a game you've played before. It's not a competition to finish them all. So, it's fine to keep some of that stuff around.
I have a few alternate approaches that I often take, and I think it's just because I rarely go that top-down approach like that. Because I think, like, I really enjoy finding a game in a weird genre that I find some enjoyment, even if it's like a weird sports sim game. Then I'm like, oh, NHL 94 is actually kind of fun. Like I never, you know what I mean? And I cut it out, so I take different angles. One, I do like to narrow by system. So this is one that I do a lot. I think a lot of it is I do it for the show a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I do think narrowing by system is a really fun way to explore a topic. It lets you kind of understand a system's limitations, because like if you're bouncing back and forth between like, Master System games and Genesis games, then you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
The Master System was for sure a limited device, but I do think enjoying some of the games there and understanding where it falters can make things like if you're playing Sonic 3 and then you try to jump to the Master System Sonic games, it's just going to feel shitty.
It's going to be a step back there. But
if you're just saying, hey, I'm just going to focus on the Master System and what it does and doesn't do well, then it can make them feel more palatable. I do think it's worth kind of sorting your selects by year. So kind of by system, by chronological.
Yeah.
Like an early NES black box game is often going to pale in comparison to the advances of like later NES games that had extra mappers and stuff.
Yeah. Urban Champion isn't going to stack up to Mighty Final Fight.
I also really enjoy limiting the systems based on the hardware I'm playing them on.
Yeah.
So like for my Mii Mini, it's almost all handheld systems because those feel right in that form factor on that tiny little screen. Like I've got some like Super Nintendo and, like a few selects here and there from some other systems just tossed in, but most of the ROMs on it are Game Boy Family, Neo Geo Pocket Color. I've got a bunch of Lynx games on there.
I love playing portable games on a giant ass screen.
I do not. It's something feels wrong about it.
I love it so much.
My Super
it feels
NES
like
Classic,
I'm cheating.
My Super NES Classic is all Super NES games, even though it just can run RetroArch and you can put whatever on there. I do think that for me, at least, limiting based on the physical hardware can give a more authentic feeling.
One thing that I really liked to do early on when I first discovered emulation was go through series chronologically just to see the evolution of that series.
Yeah.
And sometimes entire genres, just like jump back to the late 70s,
totally.
play a game, and then play as that genre evolved, just to kind of give myself an idea of how the evolution of the design went.
Yeah, I also I put in my notes that going by developer is a fun one, because if you really love a specific game or series by a developer, looking at their early work, seeing at how it informs their later games can be really enlightening.
Yeah.
It can also make certain kind of oddball entries feel more fun.
Also, it lets you see exactly when Konami fell off the cliff.
Yeah. You mean threw themselves willingly off the cliff?
They're pushed into a volcano.
And then lied about it?
Yeah, for years.
Like, if you played Ys 1 and 2, then Ys 3 might feel like it makes
sheep.
It might feel like it makes some kind of sense, right? You know, if you're
That's
doing them in
true.
order, where you're like, hey, 2 of these games that are just bumping into stuff, then they want to do something different. That makes sense. You know.
And then they go back to bumping into stuff.
Another big one for me is seasonal interest cycles.
Yeah, I don't have this as bad as you do.
This one took me a very, very long time to understand about myself, and I mean in the last like 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
My interests are very often seasonal. I will be very into specific hobbies or genres within those hobbies, depending on the time of year and what I have going on in life.
Mm-hmm.
During the holidays, I've learned that I'm always seeking out these ultra deep gaming experiences because I don't like the holidays and I want to get away from them. It's why every year we're speeding into the holidays and I'm in panic mode, and Saturn's always very nicely being like, hey, whatever we got to do about the show, we'll take it easy. We'll do easy stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's a Chrono Cross. You know, and then we do that in like fucking November.
Yeah.
I've learned that this is why. During the spring, I find myself drifting to tabletop games. It's nice outside. People are going out and wanting to hang out. And that's what being out of the house looks like for me. And video games kind of take a back seat to that. Like right now, it's coming up into tabletop RPG convention season. I'm running my weekly D&D game again. Like it's spring. And I just wanted to point out that this kind of thing is normal and it's okay. If you're hardcore into an MMO or some super in-depth RPG and then suddenly your interest dries up because life, then like write down some notes so that when you return to it, maybe on a seasonal basis, maybe every summer, you're like, man, I get really into JRPGs in the summer. I don't know if it's because I used to play them during my summer breaks growing up, or something about the summer makes them appealing to you. Like, just try to be aware of your own cycles and give yourself permission to work within those cycles instead of against them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I'm kind of coming out of my winter phase of playing 17 MMOs and 100 RPGs for the show, and that's okay. And it's okay that I set that aside. And I think we're going to talk more about giving yourself permission later in this episode. But right. I think giving yourself permission to enjoy yourself on your own terms is important. And I think that's what this whole episode needs to be about, as much as how to do that effectively, right? It's
and
not
we also give
ahead.
You permission to enjoy yourself as much as you want to. We'll turn the other direction.
It's less about forcing yourself through experiences and more about understanding how to enjoy them in more effectively, right? You know,
it's about making it less of a chore to enjoy your hobby.
Yeah, and I always say, because people want to talk about their backlogs all the time, and I'm adamant that it's never a backlog. It is a library. You don't have a backlog. You've got a library of experiences, because who the fuck wants a library comprised of only books you've already read? Like, sure, sometimes it's nice to return to the classics, but you want some new experiences from a library. That is the point of a library.
Granted, I also really like rereading books too.
Sure, but you also like experiencing new books.
Sometimes.
And having new experiences on the shelf that you can go, I want to check that thing out now.
Yes.
That looks really cool.
Right. My rule for myself, especially when I was still collecting a ton of physical stuff back before the prices were exorbitant, was I only buy games that I want to play at some point. And even if I don't have the time to play it right now it's on the shelf, so I can get to it at some point.
Yeah, for sure. It's in the library.
Yeah.
And it's not a backlog. It's not a chore.
Right.
It's an experience you've yet to have.
Yeah.
Period.
And hopefully I will be able to retire before I'm 100 so that I can play some of these games.
Yeah. We have a section here about doing a reasonable amount of committing to your choices.
Right.
And I think it's important that you know,
Because if you don't make some level of commitment to your choices, then you end up spending your entire life making those choices,
right.
and then you never actually get to play the games, which
Sure.
is what we're trying to avoid in the first place.
And I think the a thing that works great for me with commitment here is favorites lists.
Yeah.
If you're anything like me, you probably already have a full system library, and it's kind of silly to just sort of move the whole thing somewhere else because you want to play some specific game you forgot to put on your list. And, you know, I like having whole libraries on devices. Like if I'm putting Game Boy Color on there, then I'm putting like most of the US Game Boy Color library on it with, I curate a little bit. I cut out like prototypes. I cut out a lot of sports games and stuff, but most of it goes on there.
Yeah, I don't do that. I can't.
And then
as soon as I do that, I stop playing the games on it.
I use favorites lists, and I tell myself that, hey, if I'm sitting down to play a game, I have to go to my favorites list first. And I'll give myself permission to maybe go outside of that if I look at that list and go, yeah. But having it in this predetermined list, it does help me.
See, for me, I like to have my narrowed down library on whatever device I'm playing. But if I want to play something that isn't in that narrowed down library, then I will give myself permission to add stuff to it. Because I would rather keep the library on whatever device it is narrow enough that I don't have to dig through 80 entries that I'm literally never going to play before I get to the one thing that I'm interested in.
Well, ideally with my favorite system, I never end up in that big list. I go straight to the favorites, and that is what I operate from. And if I'm looking at that and going, all right, really nothing is grabbing me, I might go browse.
Yeah,
but I use it on Steam a lot. I'll have like 7 or 8 favorites, and I'm like, these are the games I'm in. Because here's my thing is, I'll also forget what I was previously committed to. I'll be like, oh yeah, I played 9 hours of that game last week, and then forgot I was playing it because fucking life is hard, man. There's a lot of shit going on to try to remember.
Yeah, I don't have that specific issue, mostly because I tend to stick to one game as much as I can.
Yeah.
Aside from occasionally having some side casually games. But so I don't tend to encounter that specific issue. I don't tend to put favorites lists on things very often, just because it makes me feel like I'm insulting all of the games that are not my favorites. What
if it wasn't called favorites? What if it was just called like select curation or something?
Yeah, if it was called like active list, I'd be more willing to use it. But when it's called favorites, it makes me feel bad for some reason.
I like how Emulation Station does it. It makes it so that when you favorite a game, one, you can just go look at your whole favorites list. It's every system. I like looking at that. But also, any favorites you have in the individual system folder, they're at the top with a star next to them.
Yeah.
And so I will very often go through and star a bunch of things and be like, this is my curated list. The rest of it's there if I want it, because I don't want to have to go run and find some fucking ROM randomly on. Because again, I'm always jumping devices. And I think maybe that's another key element here is that you stay pretty static with your devices you play on.
Yeah. And I do keep
all over the fucking place.
I keep some full sets on my desktop. So it's there if I need to copy something. And my apartment isn't that big that I can just walk over here and copy a file.
I will be playing on one device, the next day jump to a different device, the next day want it on my Miu so that I can take it to the dentist with me while I'm sitting in the waiting room.
See, just copying over the save files between everything would drive me insane.
I'm just all over the place on it. Yeah. I think is my problem. Yeah. So I do use favorites a lot, but I see the point of, you know, because I also have the library. Like, obviously, I've got full ROM sets that I've legally dumped from all of my...
Totally legally obtained, yeah.
Full, libraries, worldwide libraries that I own.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like, I'm not copying over 9,000 Game Boy Color games in all of their variants. I'm copying over like 150 Game Boy Color games.
Yeah, I might put like 50 to 100, maybe 200 on some libraries, yeah.
Yeah. What else do you have as far as committing here?
So one, you can add things.
Sure.
But also, you can remove things.
Yes.
If you have found that a game just isn't clicking with you, or you don't like it, or you're never going to have time to play it, and it makes you feel guilty every time you look at it, just cull it. Cull it from your list.
for sure.
and move on to the next game.
I put in the notes, give yourself permission to quit.
Yeah.
And this is very important. This is your leisure time. If you're not enjoying it, you don't owe it to anybody to have a bad time slogging through something you're not enjoying. The whole point of curation is finding what you like and making your game time all about what is enjoyable.
Right.
Not playing World Court Tennis for more than the 30 requisite minutes to realize that this was a terrible prank Saturn has played on you.
Yeah, that's a highly beloved game in Japan. I'm just throwing that out there.
They're wrong. They're wrong. Japan is wrong about World Court Tennis. Give yourself permission to do it and let it be, because I think this is another thing like I fall into where sometimes it's not a choice. I'm not like, this is not what I wanted. I am dropping this. It's just like maybe I'll come back to it, and it languishes in my list, and then I get what you're talking about, that guilt whenever I see it, and I'm like, I guess I'll slog through more of it. Yeah. And then I play it, kills the whole mood. I just end up playing nothing and doom scrolling my phone and then going to bed.
Yeah.
I think
understand that.
Part of curation is making definitive choices. Yes, this is in my curated list. No, this is being removed because I don't like it. Being specific about it and making it a real choice rather than just like, I don't know, I didn't love it. Like, you are the final arbiter of when you decide to remove something.
Yeah, and
you might not like the fucking title screen music and be like, fuck this game. That's okay if that's your criteria.
And this is a hobby. It is not a job or a chore. So, do the things that you are enjoying. Don't keep pushing through something you hate just because somebody told you that it is the best hummingbird-based shooter on the 32X.
I won't have you disparage Calibri in this way.
Look, I love Calibri, sir.
Let's talk tools and kind of dealing with choice paralysis. Maybe once you've kind of got together a list of things that you want to have, you've got all your Game Boy games on your Mii U, or you've, whatever your process is.
Yeah.
Tags are good.
Yep.
Tags are especially good on Steam because a lot of them are already built in.
True.
And you can create dynamic collections based on tags.
Yes. I hate
downside is
collections.
A lot of games on Steam have tags that are falsely applied by the community as a joke, like putting psychological horror tags on Peggle.
Everything.
I guess. I don't know.
And not only that, but a lot of things are mistagged just because people don't understand what words mean.
Yeah. I was trying to think. I know RetroArch has, like just the regular RetroArch front end, not emulation station, has favorites lists. It also has recent lists. I will also say that a good thing, if you want to try the favorites list thing, a good way to do it, if you've been spending a lot of time flipping around, is starting your curation by going to if you're using RetroArch, your recents list, because that's just a list of like the last 1,000 games in a row that you've played by the order of last played. And sometimes it can kind of kickstart that of like, oh yeah, I did play Mega Man X like 7 times last week. Maybe I should put that on my list. Maybe I want to go through that franchise or that series or just look at Capcom from the 90s and kind of make that part of my curation that I want to look at here.
Right.
And I think those are all. I don't know if anything other than Steam supports tags that I can think of.
I found some things. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but they'll let you custom add tags to things or labels. But for me, I think it's mostly websites though that let you just kind of build your library.
True. Yeah.
However, one thing for me that I really appreciate when I have whittled down my library and gotten rid of the chafe is now I can use the surprise me button.
Yes.
Because in Steam, the surprise me button is useless to me because I have 800 games on Steam and I know what 200 of them are.
Right. Well, plus on Steam, you've got like 50 of them installed even. Like,
right. Yeah. I maybe have 200 games installed at any given time.
Yeah.
And that's on my computer that has plenty of hard drive space. So, if you hit surprise me and it suddenly pops up with some visual novel you didn't know that you bought in a Humble Bundle, that doesn't help you. You're not really wanting to play that. Right. But on my RetroPie or something like that I have curated my list down to maybe 40 to 60 games per console. If I hit surprise me, it's probably going to come up with something I want to play or wouldn't dislike playing.
Yeah, definitely.
I do like the idea of letting someone or something else decide what I'm playing at that moment sometimes, especially if I'm not sure of what I want to play and it suddenly tells me that I'm going to play, Golden Axe for a few minutes. I'm like, all right, I'll spend 5 minutes playing Golden Axe. Why not?
I'll go kick a squirrel man for his blue drink.
I'll go beat somebody with the hilt of my sword for a minute.
I find that a trap I fall into with curation is letting other people define what my curated list is. And like, obviously, you were talking earlier in the episode about a good place to start, and I do agree that it is a good place to kind of start getting an idea of maybe something that you're like, hey, I want to see what the fucking Atari 2600 was all about, and you don't know anything. Websites and pre-curated lists are good ways to do that. But I will say that I've oftentimes found myself in the camp of like feeling like I need to play the beloved classics,
right,
whether I enjoy them or not.
Yeah.
Like people being like, oh, well, you got to play Breath of Fire on Super Nintendo, even though that game is a fucking slog and a half. You got to do it. It's a classic. And it's like, but it's my time.
Yeah.
And I think everyone wants to be well-versed in the classics and whatever their hobby of choice is.
And those of us who survived that era, we want everybody to feel the experience that we did, not remembering that some of these games have aged poorly over the last 35 years.
And so I think it's important to just remind yourself that, like, hey, it's classic to someone, but it doesn't have to be classic to me.
Right.
Although, I don't know, it cuts both ways, because sometimes it is a good way to find things that you wouldn't have otherwise looked at.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think that don't let it be restrictive, I guess is my point.
And I especially use that for platforms I'm less familiar with. Like recently when we were looking at the Amiga.
Oh, yeah.
That's a platform I knew next to nothing about just because it sold 4 of them over
the Amiga
here in the
and we
US.
live in America. Yeah.
Right. So I had to go researching the library. What are things that people actually did play on this system? What sold well on the system? What fits the system's vibe? And give myself an idea. And then I also just grabbed some random shit I'd never heard of just because its name was really stupid. And, gave myself some random smatterings to play that aren't the beloved titles. So, but it helps you just kind of get a feel for it.
Definitely. It's I don't know how to do final thoughts for this episode.
Final thoughts is when we just give up and play Mega Man 3 again.
Well, that's not Mega Man X, so that's wrong, I guess. So I guess we've come to it, haven't we?
Yes.
I think again, it's for a lot of us, hobby time is important.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we put so much importance on hobby time that we feel shame when we don't feel like we've efficiently used our hobby time, and we make ourselves feel bad about it. And I think that's wrong, right?
And also I've seen some people online recently who are into older games like we are, that will shame themselves if they play new games instead of their old games, which is ridiculous to me because there's still new good games being made, and you should be allowed to enjoy them. Yeah,
please go play Balatro. Please do it. And so it's like we if you're feeling shame about your hobby because you feel like you're not experiencing it right in air quotes. One, obviously, give yourself permission to experience life as you experience it, right? You shouldn't be defining what your hobby time looks like based on somebody else's.
Yeah.
But also, maybe some mild curation can help you get over some of the inefficiencies that you feel you have in your process. We also do. We barely talk about it anymore because we barely maintain it lately. But we have like a game club we do in the Discord, things that can help you kind of focus if you're like, hey, let's play this collectively. Let's play this together because a lot of this hobby was enjoying these things together.
Yeah. And this month we went back to the first D's game and a lot of people discovered bump combat for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah. And it was fun to talk about. It was interesting to see the perspectives of people that were like, yeah, it always, either assumed or heard that it kind of sucks, and I've always been of the opinion that bump combat is fantastic.
Yeah, I really
Takes
enjoy
all
it.
of the effort out of combat. I can just slam into the guy and then he dies. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Unless you're playing hide light, then it's not fun.
Yeah. No, it's not.
No.
So give yourself permission to enjoy it on your own terms.
Yeah.
Don't like, I think sometimes I've been thinking a lot about shame and guilt lately. I listened to a philosophy podcast about neo-stoicism,
Oh yeah.
and it was extolling the differences between shame and guilt, right?
Mm.
And shame is when we just make ourselves feel bad, but guilt can be motivational. And I'm not saying we should all feel guilty all the time, but I think it's okay.
Don't worry, I do.
I think it's okay to be like, yeah, I bought like 90,000 retro games and I play none of them. Like, yeah, maybe that should be that little nugget of guilt that kind of motivates you to sit down and curate some games and put some time in. But shame is just feeling bad to feel bad. We shouldn't feel shamed about this, and also, let me put it out there. I enjoy sitting in the RetroArch menu and trying out different shaders. Okay? I
You're
like
the one.
doing it. I fucking enjoy it. When I'm sitting there and I'm playing a game, I enjoy the process of modding it and tweaking it and optimizing the settings so it runs really good. That's part of it for me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you sit down to a 2-hour game session and an hour and 45 minutes is you carefully selecting the perfect shader to play Streets of Rage for 15 minutes, as long as you enjoyed it, you did it right.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Enjoy that.
The next person that shows up, they're going to use your work because they're going to go, hey, what's a good shader? And you're going to go, I spent almost 2 hours picking shaders. This is the best shader for Streets of Rage.
The best part of me letting you use my FrameMeister for a while was I got it back and it was configured. I just got to turn it on and it just did its thing.
I don't even remember doing that, but that sounds like something I would do, is sit there and perfectly tweak your and be like, yes, it's perfect now. Goodbye. Goodbye now, FrameMax. Go into the world and be perfect.
Well, once you had tweaked it right, you decided you just wanted to use your CRT for everything anyway, and you no longer needed it. And so I took it back and I was like, oh, this is great now.
So if maybe you just enjoy curation, maybe you enjoy the tweaking, maybe you enjoy just, and I like, this is going to sound so insane. I get a lot of pleasure out of the batch file renaming.
Oh yeah.
It feels real. I got a really good batch file renaming program, and sometimes I'll be going through like batch renaming ROM folders so that they all meet a certain like pattern.
There's definitely something cathartic about that first look once your organization is done.
Yeah.
And everything looks right.
It's perfect.
And I honestly I feel the same way just looking at my cartridges, because I don't play the original cartridges too often anymore. I'll use an emulator because I'm not a caveman.
Sure.
But I'll go in there and stare at all my cartridges just because I like looking at the box art and I like looking at the sticker on there.
Oh, yeah.
And there, even if you don't get around to playing those games, if you just enjoy collecting them, that's okay too. You're allowed to do that.
Absolutely. I think we've kind of weirdly come full circle of like, here's why you should curate your ROM list. Maybe you don't even need to, and maybe we don't know. Enjoy video games.
Yeah, I think the important part is that you enjoy it the way that you want to enjoy it. But if you are facing that choice paralysis problem and you're looking at that giant, enormous wall of games and you don't know what to play,
you play Mega Man X.
Just play Mega Man X.
Or you can put it all down. And you can go to your computer and you can go to patreon.com/retro warriors and you can give us some fucking money.
And then go play Mega Man X.
You can give us money. I don't know why I was so aggressive about it. You can give us some fucking money.
But you won't be paying for Mega Man X. We want to legally state that if you want to pay for Mega Man X, go buy it from Capcom. They still sell it on Steam. But then come give us money.
You can get uncut versions of this show where I talk about how I had hand surgery.
Yeah.
And my rat had surgery.
Yeah.
And my kid is sick.
Yeah.
You can just basically hear about how things are in shambles for me this week. So if that sounds enjoyable because I said give me fucking money and maybe you're angry at me about it, and so you want to hear my sad tale, to get satisfaction.
Right. Yeah. Some
We want to thank the following patrons for giving us said money, starting with EMD.
And B-Rad 1978.
Chase Deanda.
Abe Lincoln.
Oh, that's a good get.
The president.
That's a good one. Yeah, excellent. The president. Do 138.
Loco Mojo.
Daniel Pollock.
Noah, the Roman ostrich.
Craig Cargill.
And Raid.
Have all given us money, and you can too. You have the technology.
You can be like the president, Abe Lincoln.
Yeah. If you want to be cool like Abe Lincoln, you could give us money on Patreon. I hope this topic was useful in some way to somebody.
Yeah.
If
not, it gave
idea.
us an excuse to talk for a while, and that was pretty fun.
This is true. This is true. If not, it helped me overcome some minor pain. And get through the episode. So if I would like to know if this was useful to you in some way,
and if nothing else, I want to start the conversation. Come to our Discord and tell us how you curate your library and how you deal with choice paralysis, because maybe your suggestions will be much more useful than our rambling.
I have right here at the end of the show, after we've done the plugs and nobody's listening, I do have one of my greatest woes of curation that I want to share as just a special treat for people that listen all the way to the end.
Yeah.
When I worked at Apple, I had, this was before, this was older iPhones.
Yeah.
And I had maybe 10 pages of apps because there was no app drawer on iOS. I still don't know if there is, but there wasn't then.
There's something like it now.
And I was sitting there, and it's always a pain to find the app I want because I had like 9-10 pages of apps because I worked at Apple, so I was downloading shitloads of apps.
Sure.
And I look over at my friend's phone, and he has all of his apps sorted by color, and it looks so cool. And he's like, this is my red screen and my green screen. And I was like, oh, that's the coolest thing. It looks so awesome. And we're sitting in a meeting, and he goes, would you like me to organize yours like that? And I was like, yes, that looks so cool. Literally not once did it ever fucking occur to me that I don't know the color of any of the apps I want to use. And
it's only going to make it more difficult to find things.
It did. It made it impossible. And putting it back took hours. It was utterly useless.
I do everything alphabetical always.
It was the dumb. I was like, as soon as the second he handed it back to me, I was like, what fucking color is my email? Is it white? I guess it's got like a blue background. Is it on the blue page? Like it was.
Was your email not pinned to the bottom?
I don't know. I don't remember exactly that, but immediately I couldn't find apps. I was like, this is a nightmare. So I don't know why I thought that would be a good fucking idea. I just thought it looked cool because I was like, oh, look how aesthetic your phone looks. And that's when I learned that it's not practical. But you know. Anyway, that's the episode. Hopefully next time I've got my stitches out and my things are better for me because they've been not awesome for me right now and my hand hurts. So next time it will be better, I hope.
And if you really liked these episodes and you thought they were the best and we should have more like these,
then come slice my hand open every week and
let me know.
I'll
just drive over there and hit his hand with a mallet before we record every week.
You know, at this point, this is the third time this hand has been stitched up.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel a little bit like a crash test dummy because it's always this left hand.
Yeah.
So, you know. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.